For over a year, I had heard of this company called Real Good Foods that was apparently the next Halo Top. So I tried all the tricks of a good journalist. I sent them emails, LinkedIn messages, I asked for intros, nothing. So this year at Expo West, I spot someone on the escalator with a Real Good Food backpack on, and I said, well, he's basically trapped on this escalator, so I'm gonna give it a go. And it turned out to be Brian Freeman, who is the CEO of the company. So I said, hey, I'm a big fan. I really want to learn more about your brand. Do you have a booth at the show? And he was like, no, I don't. And I said, okay, well, do you ever send out press releases? No, we don't do that. So I asked a few more questions, and every time he was really nice, but the answer was, no, we don't do that. And finally he said to me, look, we don't really do the things that other food companies do. So since then, after many conversations with Brian, I've come to realize that's the best way to describe Real Good Foods. They don't follow the rules that food brands are told they need to listen to. I've also realized that sometimes these rules just need to be broken. So here to share how he's breaking all the rules when it comes to distribution, sales, and marketing is Brian.
Thank you. Great introduction, I think. Not sure. I guess this is a great platform, great culture you guys are building, great community. Thank you for inviting me here. What I want to do is just run a quick 2-minute video to kind of show you how Real Good Foods goes about it. Then I want to talk about a couple of foundational shifts that we're seeing in retailers as well as the consumer that sort of point to why what we're currently doing is working and why the old playbook doesn't work. And then we'll kind of compare and contrast the different approaches.
Real Good Foods to me is the first time I can eat Mexican food and pizza without having to worry about my blood sugars. And this is the first time that I can finally go back and experience foods that I never thought I'd be able to experience again.
So what did you think about it?
This is actually probably the best pizza I've ever had. And it's healthy, real good.
We've already eaten like 4 of these.
Yeah, each. They make the pizzas, their new product, it's enchiladas. They have chicken, they have beef, they have pork verde. These are incredible. I like dreaming about eating these.
that's how we do it. We think that our community is foundational to our company and our business. It drives everything that we do. It's not a marketing tactic. It leads our innovation. It leads everything. And so then the reason why it's working is because of these significant shifts that we're seeing. First with retailers. As we all know, retail is modernizing itself right now. There's a tremendous amount of competition. You see them deploying and trying new technologies and buying other business models. Now, there's three key insights I wanted to share with you today. The first one is disruption in retail has made retailers more open than ever to try new things and bring in new brands. And in fact, you know, you heard earlier today and also yesterday that natural foods is merging with conventional. We're seeing that for sure in frozen. We're also seeing it in other categories. And what I would say is, when you think about category management, just at the highest level, good, better, and best, what we see happening is natural and conventionals actually coming in as best. Best is coming down to better. Better is getting pushed out. And good, or value, is solid. And quick side note on value that I think a lot about. A friend and colleague of mine used to run the Banquet brand for ConAgra, and he told me, you know, Brian, there's a huge segment of our population that only has $40 a week to spend on food. So there's nobility in providing inexpensive, tasty food for others. And sometimes when you're in the natural food space, you may lose sight of that. So anyway, good is good, solid. But if you're in better right now, you've got big problems. So if you're a marketing brand manager of some large CPG company, you're getting pushed down because natural's coming in and redefining best. Huge opportunity for everyone in this room. Retailers really value brands that can connect the digital world with the physical. And so if you're Real Good Foods with a community, it can actually drive communities to new categories. That's incremental revenue for the retailer. That's really our job, right, as food innovators and designers, is to grow categories, not take share. So they're very open to that. Click and collect is working. I've heard that firsthand from retailers. And I don't know if any of you follow Scott Galloway. I think he's brilliant. Highly recommend you watch everything he puts on YouTube. But he points out, and he says, look, next 2 to 3 years, the story is really about click and collect. That's important. I agree with that, by the way. And you know, when you think about who's got the better business model between Amazon or, say, a Kroger or Walmart that's solving that click and collect, it's far more efficient to just go and pick up your food, and as opposed to scheduling it to have it sent to your store. So you're gonna see click and collect working. Why does that matter? If you're a big CPG and you don't have a digital presence, a big part of our population won't even know you exist on the shelf because they're not even walking in. And you know, by the way, retailers are trying to figure out ways to service that need. Okay, while that's going on, how consumers discover new brands and new products are changing. It might surprise you to know that smart speakers penetration in the household is already at 20%. It'll be over 50% in less than 2 or 3 years. And Amazon is now the number1 product search engine. So if you don't have an Amazon review, people may not even know you exist. Those are the numbers from a Scott Galloway presentation, but and I suspect those are growing. We all know that trust in big brands is declining. We've seen these numbers before. They're old, but they still remain true. That Credit Suisse number tells me that all the growth is coming from small and young brands. Netflix is interesting to me. When you consider how much people actually watch documentaries prior to streaming services as compared to where we are today, it's a big deal. What Netflix and others are doing is they're seeding interest in where food comes from, what does it do to my body, what does it do to our world and our environment, and they're going to continue to feed and grow it. I watch it all. If it's on Netflix or whatever, I watch it all because it is shaping consumer attitudes today. We all know this. Affluents are able to actually opt out. So what does that mean? That means in the old days, if you were running a brand for CPG, it's pretty simple. You go get an agency, you'd agree and align on what you want your commercial to say. You go buy some network and cable time and watch velocities go. Well, no one's watching anymore. So that's another problem. Another reason why, community is so important. I don't really want to get into this a whole lot, but it bears mentioning. The way products are designed in big CPG would never allow what our founder, Josh Schreider, created, which was a single-serve pizza made of chicken crust. There's no way that would have gotten greenlit in a large CPG environment. And there's lots of reasons for that. One would just simply be people, large business matrices are trying to design products for scale. We actually have a saying internally, it's design and go narrow and deep first if you want to go broad, okay? So I kind of would just remind you that don't try to act like big CPG, be yourself, go deep and narrow. And that's the results. So to me, these numbers are shocking. I've worked inside large CPG, and I can tell you that there are incredibly smart, talented, experienced people. They work very, very hard, but that's the scoreboard. That's the best news you may have heard all day, because that means retailers need you. They need us, because how are you going to grow their category if they're not growing? So we'll get into a few of our tactics. So first of all, if as a company you've committed that your community is the most important thing and is foundational to your success, these are the KPIs we look at. Remember, we didn't exist 18 months ago. Now compare that to these guys. So when you look at those website hits, we're getting over 10,000 a day. They're going to our store locator to find out where to buy our products. This is big, in my opinion. So going back to how smart speaker penetration is growing, we're going to get to a point, I believe, where one of the only ways we'll be able to communicate directly to our consumer is on their personal handheld device. So we invest heavily on having that relationship directly with our consumers. Our goal is to get to 1 million of them. And these are things you guys can start those tactics now. Instagram, that's shocking to me. Those are billion-dollar brands on the left. So if you're thinking about entering a category, look at what your competitors are doing. If you can beat them here, buyers understand it. They totally get this. All of our buyers follow us on IG, as far as I know, and so they get it. Again, because we're helping them bridge the digital world to the physical world. And then at the end of the day, this is what it's all about, right? So if you can drive your community to a door, that's big. And it becomes incremental revenue. So we can actually see exactly what happens with any tactic we do. If we push a SMS text out, we can see with scan level data what happened. The nice thing about text is we know the area code, so we can push it out, and we do that. We're very thoughtful, only a couple of texts a month, and it's got to be good news. The new item is available in your neighborhood, or it's on deal. Okay, so we really mean it when we say this is foundational to our business. It leads our innovation process. So we set up RGF Labs. It's about 100 people of heavy users, people who love our brand, key ambassadors, people who understand us. Far more powerful than a typical controlled learning test or whatever that you see large CPGs doing. You get honest and candid feedback, and you're also getting them invested in your product early on. You're actually seeding enthusiasm later. From there, we go into iHuts. What's an iHut? That's an in-home use test. We're sending product out to people. We're having them fill out surveys, and then we launch. And this is the next thing I really would advocate today for young brands. Launch direct to consumer first. Launch it on your website. The benefit of that is you have the connectivity to the end user. You're going to get a lot of feedback. You're going to learn a lot. And the way we look at it, we're seeding future demand in retail. There are beautiful food businesses that are strictly D2C. We're a retail business. We want to win in retail. But we think that to win, we have to launch first D2C. Because once we go in and show up on shelf, we can give the good news out. Hey, it's available now at Kroger, Walmart, Publix, whatever, on the shelf. We can literally clear shelves upon launch in the first week because we've built up all this pent-up demand. And we also are thoughtful about the cost structure. So we always, because we want to win in retail, we always will be able to deliver better value once we're in retail. A lot of us out here, and I know I was guilty of this, spent a ton of time thinking and working and trying to get on shelf when I should have been thinking about building a community, going direct to consumer, learning, and creating demand. And so, you know, it's been fast for us in terms of distribution. And I will say that all of our distribution is direct through the warehouse. We've been intentional about that to stay out of UNFI and those types of players. In addition to that, again, all of our ideas for innovation has really come with either our innovation partners in retail or our community. And so from getting that feedback, we learned, as an example, hey, we want more vegetables in our diet. We're eating, you know, a lot of chicken and protein. So there came the cauliflower crust. Very challenging item, by the way, because our cauliflower crust is low in carbohydrates. It's grain-free. We have an amazing, you know, I mentioned him before, our founder, Josh Schreier, amazing creative guy. He's got an amazing team around him to make reality happen. I could talk about this for over an hour, and I'm not. I'm sure you're happy about that. But again, the community is what's driving our innovation, our flywheel. And so unlike big CPG, we're getting instant feedback. When we launch an item and it doesn't deliver, we know about it and we're working on it. And I think that constant refurbishment of your items, even though they worked in the beginning, don't take that for granted. Just keep going and making it better and better and better and better. I can tell you our enchiladas today are incredible. They were great on launch, but today they're just unbelievable because we continue to get that feedback and we tell our community, hey, we heard you. And that just makes them invested even more. What does big CPG do? It goes to a call center when a phone number comes in or whatever and nothing happens. We actually put our phone number on the back of our package and we have a phone, an actual phone, and the 5 of us will pass it around and take turns carrying it around. It's fascinating what you're going to find out about your consumers and how they feel about you, and just having that relationship is super cool. So that's another example. Sometimes, like in other companies that I've led or helped lead, we were trying to act like we were a big CPG. Oh, we need a 1-800 number. It's the exact opposite. Big CPG wants to act like you. So don't lose sight of that. So in summary, huge opportunity. I've been a food manufacturer and marketer for over 15 years. I've never seen retailers this open to new ideas. Now's the time. Community is everything. Follow your community, go where they give you permission to go, and build demand before coming onto shelf. You only have one shot with retailers, as you all know, and when we go in, we know we'll win because we did all the work beforehand. And again, our purpose for a retailer is to grow their category. It's not to take share. And that's what drives us. And then finally, and this is the final thing, what you make matters. And so this meant a lot to our team. We got this note from an 8.5-year-old Thomas who said for the first time he could eat pizza with his friends. Incredible. I know it's so simple, but it really, I came home feeling good about what I'm putting in the package, and I hope you feel the same about your product and never lose sight of that. And feeling good doesn't have to be, it's however you define it, but it's really at the heart of it, it's integrity and believing in what you're doing. And so for that, thank you very much and appreciate the time, and thank you.
We're going to take some questions.
I'm in the hot seat.
Yeah. So I have to ask, you came from big CPG. Now you're throwing around terms like IG and social media. And what was your crash course in developing this community? Did people on your team help you? Like, how did you come to this realization? Were you just a power influencer online secretly?
I will say I'm naturally curious, and I think probably everyone in this room is as well. And that combined with trying to get better at what I do means a lot. And so when I saw what was working out there, I had this lust to want to be like that. And so sure, you got to bring in people who have some ideas and are super motivated. But I will tell you, we never brought in anyone that had done it before. It was just working really hard. One other insight I will say, I've come to the belief you can't buy it. And by that I mean you cannot cut a check to an agency and grow your social presence. It's an in-house function where you're actually communicating directly with influencers and having that passion every day.
And are you paying for these relationships with the influencers?
No, we don't. What we do is we build a relationship. It's sort of a sales job. You're finding them, then you reach out and introduce yourself and send them some food and say, hey, what do you think? And let them know, hey, if you think this is terrible, post it, and just that authenticity is what it takes.
You talked a lot about, some of the things you don't do, like in distribution, in marketing. How do you know where you can break the rules, and how do you know where you're pushing it too far, or where you need to compromise and just do what a retailer's asking?
I would say putting a chicken crust pizza on the shelf is pretty radical. So I don't know, if we're going to go further than that. But saying no is really important. In the early stages, it's easy for a retailer to tell you, hey, I'll put it in UNFI and I'll stick you over in the natural area. And you have to have the fortitude to say no. And it's paid off for us.
So questions are pouring in, so I'm going to really throw you in the hot seat right now.
Right.
So you said the only way to connect to a consumer is on their handheld device. So what tactics have worked particularly well for you besides texting? Are there other ways you're connecting with consumers?
So let me reframe that. What I meant to say, and thank you for cleaning this up, as you see smart speakers go to over 50, 60%, and as you see new product search engine actually being Amazon, the idea of, hey, I'm just going to make a clever looking package, stick it on the shelf, trade spin, slot it, and everything's going to be great. And oh, by the way, retailers are trying to design ways so that the consumer doesn't even walk into the store through click and collect. You better have a digital presence. And defense against the smart speaker, the only one I can think of right now is SMS text. Email's no longer working, email's dead, right? Less than 8% open rate. Meanwhile, text right now, if you're thoughtful about it, we're getting over a 90% open rate. So if our dream is to have a million people who care about the brand and have opted in, if we have that, we know where their area code is, and we can push when our product shows up at their grocery store down the street. That's powerful. And that does what our mission is, which is to grow categories for retailers. That's our whole purpose in life, is to grow the category. Did I answer that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that was great. So do you mentioned trade spend. Do you guys pay for trade spend?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we trade spend just like any other CPG company does, for sure.
What sort of things do you do or not do?
So it's very retailer specific, and we have a very experienced team. So we have customized trade spend plans for each retailer, because those retailers are trained their consumers to respond to certain things. And then, of course, we have EDLP programs in mass as well.
Great.
One thing I will add that's kind of cool is if you can design in your pricing and costing strategy digital marketing funds in your actual gross margin. Now, I understand it won't be there in your actual P&L, but when you're actually designing product, why not allocate? We all allocate a percent for trade spend. Why not allocate a percent for your digital marketing fund? And what that will allow you to do, which is really cool, is when you're not on deal, what if you pushed and I bought an offer out at that time? Now you've really won with the retailer, right? He or she is getting full margin, and you're pushing at times when you're in white tag.
Are you conveying that to the retailers
For
as well so
sure.
they understand you're on their team?
For sure. It's a partnership. Absolutely.
So how do you also, you talked a lot about numbers. It seems like numbers are really important. Is there a way that you're connecting that back to your sales with online? You know, sometimes you're like, oh, I got a bunch of likes. How does that actually connect to, you know, seeing those numbers increase? And this came up kind of in the influencer breakout yesterday is, you know, brand awareness versus sales, and how do you understand that?
Sure. So that which gets measured gets better. And so everything is about numbers. But what I will say is the beautiful thing about working with certain retailers is you can see exactly what's going on at the store level. So when we do a tactic, and we'll start small in a particular area code, we'll watch and see exactly what's happening. We'll spend small, and then we'll see and we'll measure what that metric is. And if it works, we go all in. We get really excited. It's like drilling for oil. You know, just $100, you know, Facebook ad in this one area. Let's see what happens. And if it hits, then we go all in. And so that's the beauty of, you know, how we live today. We've got that flexibility.
And speaking of flexibility, we had a couple questions around distribution. So
Sure.
You mentioned you don't use distributors. Can you talk a little bit more about how you distribute your product?
Well, our goal is always to go direct to the warehouse because that's the most efficient way for consumer value. And so we're a frozen food business today. We go through, you know, we sell direct to retailers. I'm not sure I answered your question, did I?
Well, just how do you? We had a lot of people asking because that's unusual, right? There's a lot of pressure that maybe you have to go to a distributor. So why do you not use that model?
I think if you can show that you can bring your community and drive incremental revenue for the retailers, you have a good opportunity, a good chance to win that decision. One other thing I'll mention is we do use 3PL, direct ship to people's homes, and we've leveraged that capability to take frozen food where it didn't exist prior to Real Good Foods. An example of that is the specialty nutrition space. There's not freezers there, and the drop size are not large enough to bring even a third-party distributor. So we direct ship in on dry ice product to thousands of specialty nutrition stores every week.
And speaking about driving, you know, to the retailer, innovation, things like that, you launched a cauliflower crust. It's kind of different than your other products, right? You said chicken is radically different, chicken enchilada crust. How did you avoid when you launched the cauliflower crust not just being another cauliflower crust on shelves?
Sure. So our cauliflower crust is very different, and it's because the reason why it's different is within our brand promise, which is obviously a clean ingredient deck, real food, right? We don't use sugar alcohols and protein, protein isolates to get to certain macronutrient claims, but we're also obviously very low in carb, very high in protein, and we're grain-free. Other soft claims, you know, of course we're gluten-free or whatever, but the point is finding a way to get vegetables into within that framework is meaningful to our community. Our community told us that. And that system that our team and Josh created is able to put other vegetables in it as well. And so you'll see us continue, as long as our community gives us permission, you'll see us continue to do that.
How did you then convey it to retailers? You know, you have this relationship with your consumers,
Sure.
right? But I imagine in something like cauliflower-based products, they're getting pitched a lot of products right now. So and they're all saying, my cauliflower product is totally different. So how do you say, no, listen, I'm really different and I'm really the one you should put on shelf?
Well, for us, I mean, it really is the macronutrient claims. A lot of people are shocked to know that cauliflower pizzas have 37 to 52 grams of carbohydrates per serving. That's a big deal. And then we talk about our community, but here's the most important thing. The first platform we launched worked and is working. So make sure you win on the first one that you launch, and you get the momentum and go from there.
Not hard to do it all. Win on the first thing you launch. Well, with that sage piece of advice, I think we're going to wrap up and go to break.